Good morning. I want us to start object-oriented programming lesson. And last week I gave you the introduction to C++, where we said OOP, being object-oriented programming, we have six main properties or features that are associated with this language or this paradigm. The first one being the class, then object, we have inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, and abstraction. So today, I want us to discuss how are we supposed to create classes and objects in any C++ program, and how are we supposed to initialize member functions inside or outside the class. So that's what we'll discuss today together. So let's start. C++ classes and objects. So as I had mentioned last week, a class is a block, a building block that we need to an object-oriented paradigm. And this class will have a data member and also a member function. Data member of a class include properties, and member function, these are functions that are invoked to ensure that your application is executed as intended. Then these classes are associated with objects. So an object is an instance of a class. Anytime you define a class within your application, no memory is allocated. The memory will only be allocated when you create an object of that class. So how do we define a class and declare an object in a C++? That is a syntax or the structure. Always you start with a keyword class, followed by the class name. You can see there, class keyword, class name. Then access specifier, I want us to know this. We have the main, private, public, and protected. The moment you declare, you use private access specifier in a class, it means it cannot be accessed. The data members and member functions cannot be accessed outside the class definition. But public means they can't be accessed anywhere within that application. Protected can only be accessed through inheritance, meaning the subclasses can inherit from the superclass even if it's protected. Then data members, those are variables to be used or the properties. Then member function, these are the methods that you use to access the data members. So always, I want us to know this, you have to terminate a class with a semicolon. That's the syntax. So start a class with a keyword class, the class name, you can have any access specifier. Always, it can either be private, protected, or, or public. Data members, you declare your variables there, member function, you'll have them there. So note this, the moment you fail to specify the access format or the specifier, you fail to indicate. By default, it is private. So note this, anytime you're creating a C++ application, then you fail to indicate the access specifier, by default, the application will be assigned private. That's okay. The syntax for declaring object, this one will have it within the main function. You will start with the class name, then the object name. You'll use that object name to access the member function. So we'll have an example, you'll see. I had explained this today. Public meaning the members can be accessed outside the class. Private, they cannot be accessed outside the class definition. Protected can only be accessed through inheritance, where the subclass or the child class can still access what was in the parent class or the super class. This is our first example, C++ program to demonstrate how do we access data members. Always, any C++ program start with hash include IOStream. Then using namespace std class, the class name, that's the class name is. Access specifier, we have said it can either be public, protected, or private. Data member, those are variables. Now we have a variable here, names name. You can have any variable name as long as you follow the rules that are supposed to be adhered anytime you are creating a variable name. For example, no space in between. You are not supposed to have a keyword as a variable name. Then member function. Here our member function is print name. Void is a data type. You can have int, void, float, double, or long. So void, print name. a member function, you have to put those parentheses, meaning you can have parameters in between them. So this means anytime I'll call this function within my application, void print name, it will display nibs name is nibs name. This now will call this variable that is here. What is in quotes here? It's a string, So my variable nibs name will be invoked. Then as we proceed, this is a structure of a member function. Then the class is terminated here with a semicolon. Let me highlight that section. You see, that's a section of the class. We have started with the keyword class. We have said you follow the syntax. Then the class identifier of the class name, you terminate with a semicolon at the end. Then the main function, use the main function to access what is in the class definition. You start with int main. So now this is the object of my class nibs obj1. This is the object name. Can I have any name? Alternatively, here you can start with class nibs obj. You ensure the spelling for this class name matches with what is here. Else, it will return an error. So that's okay. Then accessing data member, you use that object obj1 dot variable name nibs name that we had defined here. This is our variable name. It's given as names technical college. Then we access that member function. We say obj1 dot print name. Print name is our member function that is here. We saying you use an object to access the member function, and this is a member function that we have defined there. So this is the outcome. This is the outcome. I'll screenshot this. You'll have nibs name is nibs college. Why? Because we have called the member function here. This member function cout to print. Cout nibs college is, that's what is here. Nibs college is nibs technical college. This variable, the variable that we have assigned here, the string, that one will be called. So let us execute this together. I'll open the compiler, you see. So this is our compiler. I paste the source code there, then execute, compile and run. So we save our application, Canis 1. Save. If there is any error or any warning, they will be displayed down here. If no error, you can see error 0, warning 0. Our code is okay. Now we run, we see the output. You can see the output there is nibs. Name is nibs technical college, what I had shown you on the other side. So that's okay. That's okay. Now let's proceed. Next, I want us to discuss how to share or how to initialize member functions inside and outside the class definition. We have two ways of defining member function. One is either inside the class definition, the other one is outside the class definition. You'll see the only difference here, when we say inside the class definition, before you put the semicolon, where you said you have to terminate a class with a semicolon, before you put it, you define all the member function. Outside means you'll have to terminate your class with that semicolon, then all the member function, you initialize them outside, or you define them outside. And outside we'll use an operator called scope resolution operator, 2 full colons. So let's proceed to see that. So any C++ class and function will have that syntax. You can have more than one function, still is okay. And those functions can be either be inside or outside the class. So let's start with inside the class definition. And I want to use this source code here. You see, this is a header file or preprocessor directive using namespace. Say this one you have to use it in any C++ application to allow you to input and display any parameters. So you cannot use cout cin without using namespace std. Alternatively, you can have this std to precede or to start before the cout or cin. You start with std scope resolution operator, that is 2 full colon cout. Again here, where you have cin or cout. So to avoid that repetition or redundancy, you just you put it here using namespace std. Our class name here is car. Check the syntax of the class. The class is being terminated there. So class car, private, int car number, car model. These are variables. And this one is private, as it is private. But we are not inheriting. This application will still access what is there. Then void get data. This is a member function. So meaning the moment I'll call this member function, the codes that are there will be executed. And the first one is enter car number. You read the car number, enter the car model, you enter the car model. Then another function here, you can see our application is having two member function, void get and void show. Void show will display now what we have entered, the variables that we have already entered there, where we had a void get data function. So car number is, you call this variable, what is here as the same variable you have entered. Note this, C++ is case sensitive, so you have to be consistent. Any variable you have written in uppercase, be consistent till the end. Alternatively, any variable written in lowercase, maintain the same. So cout car model is given as car model is there. So this is the class definition. That's why we have said we are defining our member function inside the class. Our first function here is void get data, the other one is void show data. And you can see they are inside the class because the class is being terminated here. They are inside. Then the member function here, this is the main function. I define an object. My object here is C1. You start with the class name, and you can see here the class name is car. Then the object name. Use that object to access the member function. So the first member function here is get data. So C1.get data, then C1.show data. So the outcome, I've also screenshot that. Enter car model, enter the car number and car model, you display the same. Let's execute together the source code that is here. I'll copy. That's the source code, execute, compile and run. So enter the car number, can have number 78. Enter the car model, can have, I just have V8, then enter. So what we have entered is what we have seen as our outcome. So that's okay. Next, let us discuss how the member function are declared outside or they are defined outside the class definition. So this one, note this, here we use a scope resolution operator. Scope resolution operator. This is what we call a scope resolution operator. 2 full colon, scope resolution operator. And the syntax is as follows. You start with the class name, then you have your format or your class specifier there, which is either private, protected, or public. Next, you terminate your class there. You can see how we are terminating the class, but now the functions will be outside. The functions will be outside after you have closed your class, and this will be the format. You start with the return type that is associated with your function. Here we'll only indicate the function name and the arguments. but will not define it. You'll not have any statements within that member function. We'll have them outside. So return type, class name, scope resolution operator, then the function name that is here. If you have argument, you'll still have to indicate them there. And all the statements, function definition, statements associated with the function, you'll have to put them there. So you have an example, the same example we had when we were defining our function inside, but now you'll see the syntax will change. I have hash include as the header file, class name. The class is being terminated there. You can see my two functions, get data and show data. But for the first example, these statements here, enter car number, displaying the car number model, they were inside before we terminated our class. But now here, we have only indicated the function name and the data type, but definition, they are outside. So you'll have to start with the data type that is there, void, the class name, the scope resolution operator always, then the function name is get data, then write your statements, enter car number and enter car models. Now the two variables, you have the two variables, car number and the car model, they are here, car number and the car model. Then we have to define the other member function, show data. We start with the same format or the same data type that is here. You'll have to adhere to the syntax given. Then the car, that's the class name, the show data is there. Then you display car number and the car model. The main function will be used to access our function, our member function. So car, CI here is a object name. You can have any object name. Then I use that object name to access my member function. So I have C1. So I'll say C1.getData. You access this function. Then you'll access that function. Then C1.show data. Access this function. And the outcome is there. So let's execute together again. I'll copy that. So execute, compile and run. Enter the car number, you can have 78, still equal to V8. So that's the output, car number and the model number. So that's how we'll be defining okay. So let's have another example. I just want to edit this source code so that we enter the student registration number and the student name. So I can have class DICT, int, student, let's use stud, s admission, then character, you can say the name of the student, say s name, function name we can change, say read, then void display data. So here you'll have to change, use the exact class name, DICT. Then here we have read data. We said C++ is case sensitive. So you'll have read data. So enter student admission number. Enter student admission number. So I will read that SADM. Then enter student name. enter student name. So you range as name. Here we change the class identifier again. We use what is there, what is here, DICT. So I'll use the same DICT. And my function that is here is display data. Display data. Yes, so I'll change here. It says student admission number is given as, then student name is given as. So here we'll use that variable as ADM. Down here use as name. Next, so the class name here is, I said you can start with the keyword class. It's optional. So I say class DICT. So I'll also change the object name. I'll call it module 2. So I'll use the same here. Module 2 dot read data. Same case here, and say module 2 dot display data. So let me execute. You can see application is okay. Enter student admission number. You can have 6, 7, 8, 9. The name, and use my name, George. You can see the outcome: student admission number, student name. That is how you're supposed to write C++ program by defining member functions either inside or outside the class definition. So that's okay. Any question? Any question, Vincent? Okay. If no question, I'll still share this video with you so that you can refer anywhere you do not capture clearly. And in case you'll have any question, get in touch with me and I'll assist you. So have a nice day. Thank you.